Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Laura and today I am doing September Part 2 haul. So this is all of the manga that I bought in September, or at least half of the manga that I bought in September, or maybe even 2/3 of the manga that I bought in September. I probably should do a Part 2, Part 3. All of the titles you'll see today are all new titles that I have purchased, or they're all kind of newish releases, ones that are sort of currently serializing a handful of new titles to my collection. There was a pretty good sale on chapters online, so I ended up picking up a lot of titles that way. At any rate, this is going to be a really long haul, and I am going to show you all of the titles. So I'm going to start off with H.P. Lovecraft's The Hound and Other Stories, adaptation and artwork by Go Tanabe. It is a pretty small little title. I believe it is short stories. I have never actually read Lovecraft, so I don't really know too much about his stories. Just sort of like random thoughts here and there. The artwork in it is very dark, as you can see. Not just in theme, but also just color scheme. It's very dark scale. It seems like a really nice little publication from Dark Horse. I'm looking forward to getting into it at some point. I assume it's going to be a good series. The artwork looks pretty good, and I've heard great things about Lovecraft's writing. So hopefully this is something that I will enjoy, and I will talk about it, I guess, when I actually get to reading it. Problem with picking up new titles is that I don't actually know too much about them before I pick them up. I also picked up Kigurumi Guardians by Lily Hoshino. I actually only know Hoshino from her yaoi manga, but I really love the way that she illustrates, especially like the high shine that she gives to her characters. That is the sole reason that I ended up picking this up. I don't believe that this is yaoi as far as I know. I don't know anything about it, but I really love her illustration, and so I wanted to read something else of hers. I don't really care what it's about, so that's why I picked it up. I also ended up picking up Love and Lies Volume 1 by Musawo. I don't really know who that is or who they are. I haven't really heard this name before, so I don't know if they're a group of authors or just a single person. But the story premise was intriguing to me, or at least it sounded like something I would like to read about. It's a story about sort of a society where the government actually decides who you will get married to, and so the characters are actually told at some point in time, I think when they turn 16, who their marriage partner is going to be. The problem with the boy and the girl in this is that they're already in love with someone at the point of finding out who they're going to get married to. So I think there's going to be some struggles. I don't know if it's a comedy or if it's a drama, but I'm interested in reading it. She does have a little red string of fate tied to her finger, so I'm sure that plays into it at some point. But I don't know, it just sounded intriguing to me, and it sounded like a lot of fun, and I'm looking forward to reading this. This sounds really similar to Ikigami, only the message that they receive in Ikigami is the date and time of their death. In this one, they're kind of messaged the date and time of their impending marriage, both potentially, doom. So that's what this is about. It sounded fun. I picked up a Jiro Taniguchi work, which will barely fit into the frame. This is Jiro Taniguchi's Venice. This is part of a series of European travel, I believe, comics from a variety of different authors. This is actually a commissioned work, much like a handful of the museum works that I have already in my collection. This one is commissioned for Jiro Taniguchi to actually write and draw about Venice. Basically, I think the premise was to take artists out of their home and to put them into a foreign country or a foreign environment and make them kind of illustrate sort of a travel log of that experience. So, of course, this is a story that takes place in Venice. I have just read a very small bit of it. It made me choke up. It was really, really beautiful. It's so beautifully illustrated. I'm so incredibly happy to have this in my collection. It is just gorgeous. I think I can probably flip to any page. I can't even see, and the illustration is just beautiful. Essentially, this is a story about a man who is traveling in Venice and trying to reconnect with his parents and I believe his grandmother, who had spent some time in Venice in the past and had some connection to it. I believe some of his family might have been artists, and so he is going to see art, or to see his family in Venice, as it were, to see their work actually hanging in Venice. So it seems really beautiful and poignant and personal, and I'm really, really happy to have this in my collection. I picked up another title in the sort of nouvelle manga genre. Again, this is a title by Boilet, but it is in collaboration with Jiro Taniguchi. So I don't know what this title is about exactly, but I'm assuming that it has something to do with the artist's experience in living in Tokyo. So I'm assuming that that has something to do with it. I have already read Yukiko Spinach by Boilet, and I do have another title or two from the nouvelle manga genre, so I'm really looking forward to adding this to my collection. I believe this is a re-release. This again is by Jiro Taniguchi. This is Furari. I don't know what it's about, but obviously I went online and I said, I wonder what Jiro Taniguchi I'm missing from my collection that I can buy, and this one actually came to the top of the list, and this is something that I've had in my cart for a long time, but has been out of print, so the fact that it is back in print, I'm assuming is a re-release. That's as much as I know about it. Amazing how much I don't research before I buy stuff. It looks beautiful, and that's enough for me, and it says Jiro Taniguchi on it, and that's all I need to buy something. The next title I ended up picking up is Captain Harlock Space Pirate Dimensional Voyage by Leiji Matsumoto and Ko-Iti Shimaboshi. The art is by Shimaboshi, the story is by Leiji Matsumoto, so it is kind of dissatisfying because Leiji Matsumoto has such a great art style, and I actually really had some issue with a handful of the drawings by Shimaboshi. He kind of overly sexualized a handful of the drawings. I think he over-sexualizes in general, but some of the drawings really didn't need that high detail. It didn't make sense in the perspective that he was drawing, didn't make sense in the distance that he was drawing these characters from, that they should be so highly articulated. I found it really uncomfortable to look at some of these drawings. I don't know if anyone else will notice, but these are things that I notice and it makes me crazy. I haven't read this yet. I am a fan of Captain Harlock. I am so excited that Leiji Matsumoto's stories have finally started getting released again. There is another Captain Harlock, which I believe is the original Captain Harlock being released. I think it is currently being translated, which is coming out too. Hopefully in the same fashion as Queen Emeraldis, because that would be amazing if they all looked the same. But this one is a little bit different. It is coming out from Seven Seas. So the publication is really nice, but I'm not entirely sure I support the art. I am going to continue purchasing it though, because it is Captain Harlock, and he will be joining my collection because I like him. The next title I picked up brand new is Kiss Me at the Stroke of Midnight by Rin Mikimoto. This is volume 1, so this is a new shoujo manga. It's being published by Kodansha, and it is essentially the story about a girl in high school who is, like an honor student, straight A student, on the student council, all that stuff. And there is a celebrity who is coming to school because they're filming at her school, and because she's on student council she gets to actually meet them or be an extra in this movie or TV show or whatever, and they accidentally have a few sort of, they cross paths a few times, and to the point where he actually becomes interested in her. The main premise is that she catches him doing something that is beyond his character, that is not like the character that he portrays, and he's kind of okay with it. She kind of just like, okay, well, whatever, that's what you're like. And I think because of that, he ends up becoming intrigued with her. Super common in shoujo manga. This is a really common way that characters sort of fall in love with each other. But I love it, and I had fun reading it, and it was really cute, and I thought it was totally likable, and I'm looking forward to more. I picked up the first volume of Sweet Blue Flowers by Takako Shimura. This is a girl-girl romance, I believe, and it is a fairly large manga, which I was surprised by. I really wasn't expecting the size. This is the same author as Wandering Sun, which I have not read yet, but I will sometime. And I don't know much about this except for that I have heard that it is amazing and really great and I should read it. And it looks really cute and the art is beautiful, so I decided I would pick it up. Also the publication looks like it's worth my time. It looks worthwhile, so I'm looking forward to reading this someday, some point, maybe today, maybe next year. I don't know. I don't know when I'm going to read it, but I'm glad to have it and it looks beautiful. And an interesting, different perspective for girl-girl romance, because most of the titles that I've picked up are Yuri manga. I don't think this is a Yuri manga, so I'm interested in reading it, so I think this will be a good title. I have at least heard good things from a variety of different people, so I hope it is good. And then the last first volume of a series is Queen's Quality by Kyosuke Motomi. This is the same author as Dengeki Daisy and some other little series, but most importantly it is the same author as QQ Sweeper, which this is a continuation of. So even though this is volume 1 and it has a different title, it is actually a continuation of the 3-volume series QQ Sweeper. So I'm really glad that this is continuing. I'm glad I read that series, otherwise I wouldn't be picking this up at this point because I wouldn't have known that there was more to it. I'm not entirely sure how she continued this. I know that Kyosuke Motomi was told that to move magazines, and in so doing, the magazine kind of made a decision that they wanted to change the name and change some of the aspects of her story. So I don't know how much of a gap there is between QQ Sweeper and Queen's Quality, but QQ Sweeper is a fairly cute series, pretty expected, but fairly cute, and I'm looking forward to seeing how the story continues in Queen's Quality. In general, I like Kyosuke Motomi. I think she has fun, dynamic characters and really great female characters, which I love. So, looking forward to reading more of her. And I guess the last actual volume 1 thing that I bought was the Death Note all-in-one. I'm not the hugest fan of Death Note, so it is a little bit weird that I bought this, but as a collector or slash hoarder, I couldn't help myself. It was a pretty good price, and just having such a silly, strange, why is this even a thing published, I couldn't help myself and add it to my collection. I would like to try and attempt to read this. I think I'll probably save it for a tome topple, because there's always a challenge to read a graphic novel over 500 pages, and why not a graphic novel over 2,500 pages? At any rate, sounds like fun, and I'm not going to take it out of its plastic until I do read it, or until I decide that I'm going to read it. I want to keep it safe in its little plastic cocoon and for as long as possible, because I feel like it's going to get damaged as soon as I take it out. But I have it. It's here. It's in my little collection. It's pretty heavy, and it's insane. Like, it's so silly. Why did this happen? And obviously I completely fell for the joke because I bought it, so there you go. As for continuations of series, now that's the part we're on to next, because I have enough manga to put this into 3 parts. So these are all series that are continuing, so I have some of the series already and I'm just buying more in the series. The first one is volume 2 of The Girl from the Other Side. Really loved volume 1, thought it was absolutely wonderful. Can't wait to kind of collect the whole series. I don't know if I'm going to binge it or if I'm just going to read it a little bit at a time, but it's a very atmospheric series, so I think you kind of want to binge it so that you are having that kind of emotional response every single volume. As soon as you start it, you want to already be in that atmosphere. So I think binge reading is probably the best way to go for this title. I have 2 volumes of Inuyashiki, so this is volume 7 by Hiroya Oku, and I also have volume 8, but as far as I can tell, I missed purchasing volume 6, unless it's in the stack somewhere. I didn't see it when I was putting it beside me here. So I do have 2 more volumes of this series. I have only read the first 2 volumes of this, I think. This is a really fast-paced, really intense, really brutal series, but I really, really enjoyed those first 2 volumes, so I am looking forward to reading more of this at some point. A science fiction story with a very classic good versus evil plotline, but really unique characters, so I'm really, really looking forward to reading more of this. Another title that seems to have missed getting a volume in the middle, so I'll have to go back and rectify that. This is volume 4 of Happiness by Shuzo Oshimi, the same author as Flowers of Evil. I believe this is a vampire story. I haven't been reading it, but my sister has, and she says it's amazing, so she's really been enjoying it, but I am missing volume 3, and I will have to go back and purchase it so that our collection is complete. I picked up the next volume of Skip Beat. This is volume 39 by Yoshiki Nakamura. I already have volume 40 in Japanese, and I believe 41 has already been released in Japanese as well, so that will probably be coming to me soon because I have to buy it in Japanese too, because I'm a little bit obsessed with the series. I love it so much, and it's just such a fun series. I really, really enjoy it, and I enjoy every single volume. Even though this is volume 39, I'm still enjoying it as much as I was enjoying the first, so yeah, I really, really love this series. The next title I ended up picking up is Platinum End by Tsugumi Ohba and Takeshi Obata. This is the same author as Death Note, and this sort of feels like a what if Death Note series, so it's really similar, at least the initial premise was. I don't know how volume 3 is, but it does feel a little bit like an alternate sort of what if story for Death Note. I have only read the first volume. Did I say that already? I haven't read volume 2 or 3 yet, but I am going to continue and buy the series just because I think because this is sort of a reflection of Death Note, I would like to see the series complete and then actually like compare the two. I also bought the second volume of The Water Dragon's Bride by Rei Toma. I really enjoyed the first volume, a surprisingly dark title, even though it is a very cute cover. Basically a story about a girl who gets transported into another world and then gets sacrificed to the water dragon, who is sort of like a god in another world altogether, so it's sort of like a transfer of worlds into another world. But it was really fun. I really like the time place that this takes place in, and I'm really looking forward to it. There's a lot of potential for this series. I keep buying Kaze Hikaru by Taiko Watanabe. This is volume 25. This is one of the first manga that started getting serialized when Viz finally started releasing manga in their shoujo beat imprint. So this has been going on forever, and it just keeps going. This is a josei manga, basically a story about a young girl who disguises herself to becoming a boy and pretending to... she ends up joining what later becomes known as the Shinsengumi, which is a well-known historical group in 19th century Japan during the Meiji Restoration. So they have kind of a tragic history, so she is sort of a member of this group. It is a romance, but it also is a historical drama, and you do really get a lot of references from the time period. I haven't read since, I don't know, maybe volume 15, so I'm quite behind in the series, but I have been buying it forever. I've been buying it since it started releasing, and that was seemingly like a million years ago, maybe 10 years ago when it started serializing in English. And it just seems to be no end in sight. I don't actually know how long the series is, but it just seems to keep going. I picked up the next volume of Everyone's Getting Married by Izumi Miyazono. This is volume 6. This again is a josei manga. This is a romance series basically about an office worker and a reporter, I think, or a TV newscaster, and she really wants to get married and he really doesn't want to get married, and what do you know? The plot thickens. Really typical expected type plot, but also the characters are likable, and you don't dislike her as a character just because she wants to get married. You know, like, she understands that that's not something that everybody wants, or that it's even sort of kind of frowned down on, especially in like today's society. So you know, she works really hard at her work, but it's also sort of her dream for the future. But because she ends up in this relationship with this man, she kind of has to reevaluate, and he has to reevaluate what their priorities are. So it's an enjoyable series. I really like it, and I'm having fun reading it. I picked up the next 2 volumes of Dream and Sun by Ichiko Takano. This is volume 2. I also have a volume 3. This is a story about a young girl who leaves her home. I can't remember exactly why, but she ends up living in an apartment or a house with a number of other tenants who are male students at her school. I don't know that this is actually a harem or reverse harem series. I think it feels a little bit more like Fruits Basket, sort of, but maybe not quite as emotionally demanding. Maybe that's the word. It's a fairly cute series, but it's also a fairly average series. Like, it's not something new or special, in my opinion. I picked up the next volume of Kimi ni Todoke From Me to You by Karuho Shiina. This is volume 27. Continues to be adorable and sweet and lovely and the cutest romance ever. And I picked up volume 2 of Kakegurui, Compulsive Gambler by Homuro Kawamoto and Toru Naomura. I haven't read volume 1 yet, but essentially this is a story about a school that teaches its students to be kind of conniving gamblers. And there is a hierarchy, and the better you are at kind of tricking your fellow students for bluffing, you know, those kind of things, the better gambler you are, the higher you are ranked in this particular school. I believe this student is particularly good. That is what I know from it. Don't know too much, but it sounded interesting and a lot of fun. So the next thing that I ended up picking up was the next 2 volumes of Genshiken second season. This is volume 10 and volume 11. I haven't read this series since about volume 4, so I don't really know too much about where the story has gone and whether or not it is good or not. I don't really know. But the original Genshiken is one of my all-time favorite manga, probably top 25 favorite manga of all time. I love it to death. I read it fairly frequently. I haven't read it this year yet, which is kind of a surprise. I watch the anime fairly frequently. For anime, I watch it quite a bit. It's just one of my favorite things. So I am continuing to buy this. I'm not reading it currently. I don't know why exactly. I wasn't as thrilled with this particular series because the entire cast of the original Genshiken is replaced, and I really loved that original cast, so this is replaced with an all-girl cast, which is fine. It's not a bad thing. It's just that I really connected well with the cast of characters from the original series, so I'm just sad to have seen them gone. Some of them are still here, but they're not necessarily the favorite characters, although Madarame-kun is still here. I love him. But yeah, I kind of miss some of the boys from the original series, so I haven't been reading this. I will get to it eventually, probably closer to when this series is finished. I picked up the next 2 volumes of I Am a Hero, so this is volume 3, and I also have volume 4 by Kengo Hanazawa. This is a zombie horror manga, and you can see they're omnibus. They're quite chunky, although they're really, really nicely published. Like, they feel really sturdy. And I did read volume 1, and I didn't feel like it got damaged at all in the reading process, so if that's something you're concerned about, this is a nice publication from Dark Horse. I really, really enjoyed reading the first volume. It was one of my favorite things of 2016 that I had read, so I'm looking forward to going further into this one. I ended up picking up the next 3 volumes of Princess Jellyfish by Akiko Higashimura. This is volume 4. Then I got volume 5 and volume 6. I haven't read these 3 volumes yet. I have read the first 3 volumes of the series though. I really, really loved it. I thought it was wonderful. Great cast of characters. Really fun dynamic between the characters. Somewhat relatable. I loved that they were older characters because they all are portrayed as otaku of various kinds, but it's just really nice to see characters that are in like their 30s, because most characters in manga, at least the manga that is released in English, just tend to be quite a bit younger because that's who the audience for manga is here. So I just really, really appreciated that. It's just a fun series. I really like it. I love the fashion in it. I love the concept of it. I love the characters in it, and just enjoying the series. This is a lot of fun. And now the last little bit of this is all of the series that are completed or final, and I now have a complete series run of, so I'm going to show you those now. So the first one is Volume 2 of Otherworld Barbara by Moto Hagio. I haven't read Volume 1 yet. I feel like that's a theme. I haven't read anything. I haven't read Volume 1 yet. I believe this is a newer work, if not like very new, of Moto Hagio's. I think it's a science fiction work. I don't really know. I've read a handful of Moto Hagio. She is stunning. Her work is stunning. Her writing is stunning. Her artwork is stunning. Everything about her is stunning, so it doesn't really matter what this is about because it has to join my collection. Plus, it's published by Fantagraphics, and Fantagraphics is amazing. They make amazing publications, these hardcover, sewn-in bindings that like lay flat, beautiful publications. They are definitely worth your dollar compared to pretty much any other publisher in my collection. They are wonderful. So, looking forward to getting to this sometime. And hopefully that sometime isn't very long from now. I ended up completing Goodnight Poon Poon. I think you can see that on the camera. It's a little bit difficult. It is still in plastic, so it makes the shine even a little bit harder to see. This is by Inio Asano. If you've watched any of my videos, you'll know that I'm not the biggest fan of Asano. I really do like Asano's storytelling, and I love Asano's artwork. I don't necessarily like the stories that are told. I am kind of 50-50 or on the fence right now about Asano's work. I do have a few others to read. I haven't finished reading Goodnight Poon Poon. Obviously, since it's in plastic, I am just a little bit over halfway. I think I'm putting it down for the short term. I will pick it up again in the future. I picked up the last 2 volumes of That Wolf Boy Is Mine, so this is volume 3. And I also have volume 4. This is by Yoko Nogiri. This is a reverse harem manga, basically about a girl who has some problems at her first school because she befriends some of the popular boys, and of course all the girls get jealous, and the world is really difficult for her. So she, gets bullied and stuff at school. So she ends up transferring to school, and initially, right off, she ends up making friends with some of the coolest boys in school that none of the other girls can get near. And these boys have a secret, and so she ends up kind of getting a taste of their world. It's a pretty cute story. I've only read the first 2 volumes. I don't really know where it goes. I'm assuming I know where it goes. I've read a lot of reverse harem. It's fun. I enjoyed it. 4 volumes is definitely worth my while to complete the series, and I will get to it at some point when I'm kind of in the mood for this particular type of story. I do really like sort of what their secret is. I do like that aspect to it, and I like stories with those types of characters in the series, the story. So when those characters themselves appear, I really, really like that. So as much as I'm not like always 100% on reverse harem, I really, really like what these characters do or are. Anyway, I think it's really cute. It's fun to read, and I'll get to these at some point. The next title is Queen Emeraldis Volume 2. This is by Leiji Matsumoto, the same author as that Captain Harlock title that I had already showed you, but this one is illustrated by Leiji Matsumoto. It is just a 2-volume series, but it's a really beautiful publication. It has beautiful black printing, or black ink printing on a high gloss page. It's just really, really lovely. I have not read Queen Emeraldis yet, but I did read Galaxy Express 3.9 this year already, and loved it, and it was wonderful. This is more complete than Galaxy Express 3.9, so I will be getting into this hopefully soon. Although I have said that a number of times, it has been on several TBRs this year, and I still haven't read it. But it's getting closer to me reading it. It's obviously on the top of my mind. But it's beautiful, and I'm so glad to have it in my collection. And it is now complete, and there is, I believe, a Captain Harlock being translated in addition to the one that is also in my pile here. So really, really happy to have this one complete in my collection as well. And then the last manga, just looking around below me, I think that's it. That's all I have to talk about. The last manga that I completed in the month of September was Complex Age, so I ended up picking up Volume 4, Volume 5, and Volume 6. This is a series. I've only read the first 3 volumes again, but I highly recommend it. It is basically a story about a young woman who is in fandom. She's a cosplayer, but she feels like she's getting too old for it. She's definitely older than the majority of the fandom, and it is getting hard for her to kind of justify being part of the fandom, because this thing that she likes to do is considered childish. It is sort of something that I think everybody who is in fandom kind of has to go through for themselves. It is a very relatable manga, especially for me, because for me, like, I'm in fandom, but I am, you know, so much older than the majority of people who are in fandom. Like, you know, fandom doesn't seem to age, but I do, so I'm still here, and I don't know where did everybody go? Where did they all go? So it is very relatable to me. I am not a cosplayer, so I don't relate to that aspect, but I completely understand a lot of the emotions and feelings and problems that these women have, and I really, really, really liked this comic. So I am very excited to get further into this, read the rest of this. I'm very happy that this comic exists. Anyway, I think that is it for September. I think that's everything that I bought. Definitely a very successful collecting month. Lots of titles adding to my collection. There are so many titles that I'm currently buying that have like multiple releases out that I haven't been able to keep up on, just because there's so much that I'm currently buying and I just can't afford to buy everything. It may look like I buy everything, but I really don't. So yeah, there's a lot of series that I had to kind of put the brakes on, and we'll see if I can collect any more of certain series. But you know, this is sort of mostly it for this year. There are going to be a handful of things coming in for the rest of the year, but I don't think I'm going to be seeing any more in this amount of numbers until at least 2018, because it's a lot to do every month. I couldn't do this every month. The pile of manga here to the left of me is kind of obscene. Let's just say that. But you just saw it all, so you know what it's supposed to look like. Anyway, that is all I bought for the month. If you've read any of these titles, or you're interested in any of these titles, let's chat about it down below. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in my next one. Bye for now.